Hey, it's Heather Miche. I'm here this evening to share a really key baking tip with you that's super easy and quick, and that is how to test if your yeast is viable, i.e. active, happy, alive once it gets mixed with water and a little bit of sweetener. Super important to have your yeast active. And do stay tuned to the end because the result of my test that I just did on my yeast that I buy in bulk and then, of course, store in the refrigerator. Always want to store your yeast in the fridge. It's going to blow your mind. It's just hilarious. It's very funny. So stay tuned, and here are the steps to check and make sure that your yeast is active, happy, and will interact with your wheat flour and the gluten in that, or even if you're baking with gluten-free flour blends or flour. So super easy steps. I'm just going to walk you through verbally and then show you the result. You simply get a small bowl that is ceramic or glass, best to not be metal so it's not reactive. Put in that bowl about a half a cup of 110 degree Fahrenheit filtered water. Now, the temperature is super important of the water. You don't want it too hot because it will kill the yeast. You don't want it too cold or too cool because then the yeast won't get activated. The filtered water part is super important because the chlorine or chloramine, which is just chlorine and ammonia that have been blended to become a water disinfectant. So municipalities use either chlorine or chloramine to disinfect their water supply. You can learn more about that in other videos of mine. Totally a drinking water nerd. But the filtered water is key because the chlorine or chloramine, it can deaden the effects of the yeast. Okay, so you've got your bowl, half a cup of that 100 degree Fahrenheit filtered water. Add in a teaspoon. The measurements don't have to be exact because we're just doing a test, but about a teaspoon rather of active dry yeast. Mix that in with the water very, very well. You want every single little grain of that yeast dissolved in the water. So mix it really, really well. Once it's all dissolved, put a quarter teaspoon of honey into the slurry of your water and your yeast. Blend that together very well so that the honey is distributed throughout. And then just let it sit for about 10 minutes or maybe a few minutes more, but you'll know after about 10 minutes or so whether your yeast is dead or if it is indeed happy, active, and alive. So once that yeast, if it's active, it will bubble up and kind of do a little foamy thing. So let's see the result of the test on my yeast that I just did a few moments ago. Yep, that is definitely active and alive yeast. Look at that. It's like a biscuit that's sitting on top of water. And there's no flour in there. It's just the water, the yeast, and the honey. So this tells me my yeast is happy, active, and very capable of doing its job of getting baked goods to rise. So, yee-hoo! Very happy about that. I was starting to have some issues. My bread and even my super delicious scones were tasting and just kind of a little off. So I thought, and I think it's my flour, but it's not the yeast. So I wanted to check this first. So there you have it, testing your yeast for viability, effectiveness, and happiness so that your bread baking and other yeast-based goods that come out of your kitchen are light, risen and delightfully delicious. Thanks so much for watching. Love having you coming along on the ride here with me on my channel. So click that subscribe button if you'd like to get cooking, baking, sustainable living tips. Happy to offer these things up to you. Take great care. Keep cooking, baking, and treating yourself well.